begins to vibrate, its tremulous shadow falling upon the screen. Its movement marks the beginning of life in the cosmos and in the world of the shadow play, Wayang Kulit. The pohon beringin is tree or mountain shaped. It symbolizes the axis mundi, the world tree, a link between this ephemeral world of shadows and the higher reality. It is the most important figure in a Wayang Kulit Siam set, the images within manifesting in essence the complex hierarchies of being. It is the very heart of the wayang. Of Malaysia's 4 shadow play styles, Wayang Kulit Siam, performed in Kelantan, is the most important. A set consists of 60 or so figures, intricately carved out of processed cow skin and beautifully painted. Most of the figures represent characters from the Hindu epic Ramayana. In Wayang Kulit Siam, this epic is performed in a local version known as Hikayat Maharaja Wana. Additionally, there exist numerous lesser tales, cerita-cerita ranting. These are locally developed extensions of the Ramayana. Its branches, twigs, leaves, and flowers. Some of these have been inspired by the Javanese Panji romance. Others come from the fertile folk imagination. The figures represent the noble and the evil, the beautiful and the ugly. Traits of character are indicated by details of carving, the size of the character, the shapes of the eyes and the nose, his stance, as well as his behavior. External physical aspects often serve as an index to the inner being. Noble characters are elegantly carved, refined both in design and manners. The figures, like a wayang performance itself, manifest diverse influences: animistic, Indian, Islamic, and Thai. Colors are often symbolic. Sri Rama, green in color, is the soft-spoken hero. Laksamana, his equally gentle brother, is orange, while Sirat Maharaja, their father and king of Siusia Mandarapura, is yellow. Then there is the beautiful though virtually helpless heroine, Siti Dewi, desired by every king or common man, and the venerable Maharishi Mata Api, her adoptive father. As a general rule, the ogres and some of the noble but aggressive or powerful figures are painted red. This is supposedly based upon a concept derived from the Holy Quran that jinn were created out of fire. Then there are many other categories of beings. Monkey soldiers, headed by Hanuman Keraputih, clown servants, headed by Pak Dogol and Wak Long, as well as country bumpkins, Orang Darat. Equally important in a performance are stage properties such as palaces and trees. During performance, all figures are planted on a pair of banana tree stems, batang pisang, the noble characters on the puppeteer's right and the evil ones on his left. The characters of the shadow play, then, are complex, But the real hero of a Wayang Kulit Siam performance is the puppeteer, Tok Dalang. He manipulates all the figures in a performance and gives them voices. He performs the rituals, opening and ending a performance. He is the conductor of the Wayang Kulit Siam Orchestra. Upon him depends the whole performance, lasting 3 to 4 hours each night, for perhaps several nights. In addition, a small number of Tok Dalang make their own puppets and musical instruments. Music is provided by an orchestra consisting of double-headed barrel drums, gendang, hourglass-shaped single-headed drums, gedombak, drums beaten with sticks, gedok, pot-shaped bronze hanging gongs, tetawak with a boss, small inverted gongs, canang, cymbals, kesi, and double reed oboe, serunai, all occurring in pairs. 8 or 9 musicians play these instruments. "30 or so tunes, instrumental or accompanied by songs, are used to emphasize or merely accompany a host of activities: paying homage, singing, walking, bathing, or fighting. Many of the characters have assigned to them specific tunes named after them. Such, for instance, are lagu Dewa Panah Turun and lagu Dewa Panah Berjalan, Maharisi Berjalan, and Sri Rama Berjalan. These indicate the movement of the characters from one place to another. In similar situations, lagu Hulu Balang is used for rougher characters. Clowns have their own pieces. The simple Wayang Kulit Siam theatre, panggung, is generally made of wood and thatched palm leaves. A white muslin screen, kalir, is stretched across its open front. Just prior to the commencement of a Wayang Kulit Siam performance, the pohon beringin stands at screen center, overlapped with the Maharisi figure and the pair of Dewa Panah. These are gods with arrows, one male, the other female, or conversely, one evil and the other good. A performance begins with the rituals for the consecration or opening of the theatre, buka panggung. These may be conducted by the dalang himself or by a qualified ritualist, pomo. A buka panggung usually begins with Islamic prayers, doa, and a selection of passages from the Holy Quran. Taking the offerings placed in a large tray, the dalang addresses invocations to prophets and saints, as well as to a whole range of environmental spirits. His aim is to prevent mishaps to himself, to his troupe of musicians, and to his audience. For the actual opening of the panggung, the dalang covers himself with a shawl, awaiting the precise, auspicious moment. When ready, he gives a loud vocal signal. The musicians play the opening signal piece, lagu bertabuh. Turmeric rice is thrown in the 4 directions to cleanse the interior of the panggung. As a prelude to the unfolding of the story, an unbroken sequence of instrumental pieces is played. A dalang's assistant, or an apprentice to the puppeteer, dalang muda, takes the place at the screen. He performs the opening section known as the bahagian dalang muda. This serves as a preparation for the main story. The pohon beringin, maharisi, and dewa panah figures are removed. The pohon beringin is gradually swayed from side to side and then shaken in tune with the music before being removed. Maharisi enters and recites a mantra. The two Dewa Panah make their entrance from above. Maharisi repeats his mantra. The Dewa Panah engage in battle. This is the first part of the Dalang Muda section, known as Dewa Panah Perang, the battle of the Dewa Panah. A battle which symbolizes the conflict between good and evil, the principal theme of the Wayang Kulit Siam stories. In preparation for the second part, the figures of Sri Rama, Laksmana, Pak Dogol and Wat Long are brought onto screen center. They stand in readiness for the entry of Sri Rama's ministers and generals. This section is known as the Bahagian Penghadapan Sri Rama, the audience before Sri Rama. The introduction of the warriors having been established, they tell Sri Rama that everything is calm and peaceful in the land of Siusia, Mandarapura. A final section consists of the glorification of Sri Rama in a song by the apprentice puppeteer. Sri Rama's noble origin is detailed, his physical appearance described. Sri Rama now leaves, accompanied by his entourage. The puppets, representing the ministers and warriors, are taken off the screen. It is now the turn of the senior puppeteer, Dalang Tour. The screen is cleared for the emergence of the characters who are to play a role in the episode selected. This evening, the episode entitled Siti Dewi di Halau, or Siti Dewi Forsworn, is being played. Its plot comes from the local version of the Ramayana. Following the defeat of Ravana and Siti Dewi's rescue from Lankapuri, Sri Rama and his entourage return in triumph to Siusia, Mandarapura.
Oh, gitu kan? Ya, abang nak pergi dulu. Sekarang juga adik abang nak pergi. Siapa dia abang nak pergi? Abang nak pergi Pak Saudara adik Laksmana dan kakak Mok 21. Adik masuklah dalam istana, maka kini tidur di bawah tidak apa lagi juga. Tuan Menteri sendiri pun masuklah dari dalam istana.
Sri Rama, together with his brother Lakshmana and the pair of clown servants Pak Dogol and Wak Long, leave the palace for a ritual cleansing at a pond in Taman Banjaransari. Meanwhile, at the palace, an old woman visits Siti Devi. Claiming to be a former servant, she seeks to be re-employed. Siti Devi allows her to stay at the palace.
Siapa dia ni? Halo, kita kenal dah pasti.
The servant, who in fact is a demoness in disguise, persistently discusses Ravana with Siti Devi, although Siti Devi wishes to forget her ordeal in Lankapuri. Eventually, threatening to leave, the servant succeeds in persuading Siti Devi to draw a portrait of the demon king. At the pond in Taman Banjaransari, the spirits are invoked as Sri Rama enters the pond to take his bath. Immediately, the hero falls severely ill.
Ada.
As his condition worsens, Sri Rama is brought back to his palace. Siti Devi, realizing that her husband is approaching, is in a state of panic as Ravana's portrait is still in her hands. The old servant mysteriously disappears. Siti Devi quickly hides the portrait under her mattress. Sri Rama lies upon the same mattress. Immediately, his condition worsens. A search reveals the portrait. Sri Rama's anger knows no bounds. Accusing Siti Devi of still longing for Ravana and being ungrateful that he has rescued her from Lankapuri, he beats her severely and eventually sentences her to death. Lakshmana is to be her executioner. Lakshmana, who all along is convinced that Siti Devi is innocent, has no choice in the matter. Taking her to the open spaces, he shoots 3 arrows at her. Siti Devi is not harmed. He suggests that she return to her paternal home until things can be worked out between her and her husband. As time passes, Sri Rama suffers considerably, and Lakshmana is forced to reveal the fact that Siti Devi is still alive and living with Maharishi Mata Api, her adoptive father at Wat Tujuh Kedi Bermas. Eventually, a reconciliation is brought about between Sri Rama and Siti Devi. The occasion is celebrated with a feast. The pohon beringin appears at screen center for the last time. Its stillness marks the cessation of activity in the wayang. There is once again neither movement nor sound in the cosmos. Brief tutup panggung rituals close the theatre, and the wayang figures are carefully stored in a wicker folio.
Wayang Kulit is a play of shadows on a cloth screen, using puppets made from hides and stories from the Ramayana epic. I am Hamzah Awang Ahmad, a Wayang Kulit Dalang. I control life on the Wayang Kulit stage.
Assalamualaikum, Assalamualaikum, ya Allah, ya Allah, ya Allah, ya Rasulullah, ya Sidi, ya Umanana, ya Hu, ya Ali, Umar, Ismail, Abakar, ya Jibril, ya Mikail, ya Israfil, ya Israel. Kami nak kira panjang 7 ngati 5 dalam tua muda tengah bosu kami nak minta Tuan Allah menjadi pagar sawah aku boleh kubah matabik pada waktu ini ketika ni kami nak buka bahasa membangun dewa.
When I was young, there were Wayang Kulit performances almost every night. I remember the first time I watched a Wayang Kulit performance at the age of 11 years old. The next morning, at school, I was drawing Wayang Kulit characters in my exercise books. Later, I made the puppets from any cardboards I could get hold of and would also paint them with my watercolors. My friends were also into it, and we formed our own Wayang Kulit troupe, using cardboard puppets, tin cans, and paddy stalks for the musical instruments. And we told our own version of Ramayana epics. I was the Dalang, of course. Once a week to University of Science Malaysia in Pulau Pinang, an island off the northwestern coast of the peninsula. For 2 nights, I will teach a few university students Wayang Kulit, the music, puppet making, the story, and generally how to be a dalang. Studied under 3 teachers. My last teacher, the late Awang La, who was already 65 when I approached him, was the one who most influenced me. I studied under him for roughly 11 years. He was a very stern teacher. I had to walk 5 miles to his house, through paddy fields and jungle paths. My first few years were spent just doing all the odd jobs and following him on all his performances, carrying the musical instruments, and puppets, walking for miles at times. Phew. I had to gain his trust and respect before he was going to teach me anything. It is funny. In those days, I have to travel to learn. But now, I have to travel to teach. The stories told in Wayang Kulit performances are all intertwined. Like a tree, there is the trunk, main branches, flowers, and leaves. The tale of Maharaja Wana is the main story, which starts with the birth of Maharaja Wana and ends with his death. The origins of the other major characters like Sri Rama, Lakshmana, Sita Dewi, Hanuman, Pak Dogol, and Wat Long are also introduced here. I get to meet many people at the university. Usually there are researchers from other countries and other puppeteers themselves. They tell me about their Wayang Kulits, other stories, music from other countries like Thailand, Vietnam, Burma, China, Indonesia, India, and so on.
He says it's a good, but it's very, very funny because color is very good. Should be given a high grade for the work we have done. Boleh ya, dapat B tinggi boleh ya. Kalau A agak boleh lah. Mungkin tak boleh lah. Tapi B dapat B tinggi boleh. Tapi sebagi ini, lain. Ini Asyad bin Ibrahim.
The similarity is in the theme. Good triumphs over evil.
Tapi yang ini saya ingat, yang ini kasar lah. Kita nak bagi tinggi tak masuk ni datang. Kemudian dia terkasar sikit ni. Kurang pun tak kasar ni. Kita dari detail ni. Dari depan. Kita terpulang datang. Betul lah tak nak. Saya tu. Saya ni nampaknya gengsi lah. Si ketengahan kau lah. Maksudnya. Jadi juga tugas juga.
I think most people in Malaysia identify Wayang Kulit with the northeastern coast of Malaysia, especially the state of Kelantan. I suppose we have been more active. In Kelantan, it is the villagers who enjoy Wayang Kulit. Wayang Kulit performances are usually held after paddy harvest as a kind of thanksgiving and a time for relaxation and joy. In those days, we used to perform almost every night after the harvest. Today, we hardly get any. So, keeping the troupe together is difficult because we have to look for other jobs to feed our families. For a performance, I have to round all of them up. Dola used to do odd jobs in the village, but now he is working in a construction site about 10 miles away. By the time he reaches home, it is dark and he is tired. But if there is a performance, I just have to tell him the time and place. He will be there. Awang is my oldest and dearest friend. He was making music from paddy stalks when I was playing with cardboard puppets. Today he plays the serunai or flute for the troupe. He is the only one among us who still work in the village. In the village, everyone knows me as Hamzah, the Wayang Kulit Dalang. So far, nobody has had any trouble looking for me. I would be alone most mornings. My wife would have gone to market and children to school. Sometimes I would go to a coffee shop for a drink or a chat. I still remember those days of feverish preparation for shows. The moment we entered the village, the children will be swarming over us. There will be smiles all over. The young girls will be peeping at us shyly, and the young men in the troop would be stealing looks at the girls. In fact, the men in the Wayang Kulit troop were like film stars in those days. I met my wife Esa at one of my performances in 1967. She shares my love for Wayang Kulit. In fact, a year after our marriage, she was helping me make the puppets and the musical instruments. She, however, grumbles over my passion for songbirds. She complains, I spend more time with them than with my children. I have 10 songbirds. Some are prize-winning singers. Once in a while, I would take them to the local bird singing competition. Some of these birds cost thousands of ringgits. I can recognize the sound of my birds anywhere, but they are moody too. And as we Malaysians say, no mood means no song. Making Wayang Kulit puppets and musical instruments is another source of income for me. Usually, it is the people from the university and tourists who buy them. I do sell some to other dalangs, because not all dalangs can make their own puppets. That too saves a lot of time. In making a puppet, one has to soak the cowhide, wash and scrub it, dry it in the sun, draw the figure, chisel it, paint it, and finally finish it with bamboo for support. Esa will do all the bindings for the musical instruments, and I will test the sound. Each puppet maker has a unique style of his own. However, the basic shape of the figure, headdress, colors and accessories used remains the same. I can recognize my puppet. Another of my trusted helper is my neighbor's son, Anwar. He has been learning the art of chiseling for 4 years. He started when he was 15 years old. He is getting to be very good. In a few years, he will be an expert puppet maker himself. However, he is not interested in being a dalang. I am not surprised, but I feel sad about it, because I don't want it to die. I don't want my grandchildren to learn about it through books and tapes when it came from their own origins. I took almost 11 years to perfect my skill as a dalang, musician and craftsman. Today, no one wants to spend so much time trying trying to learn something which cannot give them any money. If I did not get the university job, I would have sold all my puppets and musical instruments, because I wouldn't know when the next performance would be. In 1968, there were about 120 dalangs in Malaysia. Less than 20 remain today, and all of us are not getting any younger. To tell the whole tale of Maharaja Wana can take months. I usually choose one of the parts, like when Sri Rama, the prince, won the hand of Sita Devi, the princess, in a shooting competition. He lost her to Maharaja Wana because he did not heed the advice of his brother, the Lakshmana and the princess's guardian. The guardian knew what Sri Rama, the demigod, was like. He hid Sita Devi in a temple which had stone statues of her form. But Sri Rama managed to detect her when she blinked. He persuaded her to go back with him to his country. Lakshmana had protected Sita Devi from evil forces by drawing a circle around her. She, however, left the circle by following a golden deer, Maharaja Wana in disguise. He then kidnapped her and took her away to his kingdom.
Pada kaki tanganku, maka dia pun gerangi akan basuh menjadi ilamakan hijamah hijau jana.
Dalang would know how to play all the musical instruments, because a dalang is the teacher and leader in every Wayang Kulit troupe. There are 35 tunes, each one of them for specific characters and movement of action. The tunes also convey moods and intentions. If warriors are going to war or appearing on the screen, the warrior tune would be played. For the battle tune would be played. Therefore, it is very important that the musicians are good. Only then the mood can be achieved. Here I am teaching the student the warrior tune. Learning is simpler now because there are notes which the students copy. These notes were written by one of my former students, now a lecturer in a local university. During my time, learning was by listening and watching. A mistake would earn a knock on the head, plus a good sounding off.
Bulat dengan yang X tu apa ni? Bulat ni ialah canan tandaan canan ibu. Yang ni? Yang X ni canan anak tu. Yang ni? Cuba balik dua tu. Tapi dia sama, canan dua pasang tu dia sama. Bulat ni sama bulat, X ni sama X ya. Dua-dua ya. Lepas tu kesi tu dia sama dengan canan ibu. Dia coba balik kesi. Dia sama ya. Inilah baru yang itu dia ni. Jadi dong cak dung dong dung dung dung. Kan? Coba kita buat lagi macam ni, kan? Coba dah.
To these students, the class is a lot of fun. After graduation, most of them would probably forget what they learned. The only people who take up the subject seriously are the lecturers and researchers. But then, they only keep this tradition alive through books and tapes. We enjoy building the stage for a performance. Saves a lot of money, and many of us are in the construction business anyway. We buy used planks for the floor and use coconut leaves for the walls. In those days, we used to make the atap roofs ourselves. But now we buy. Easier that way. Well, time has changed. But it is still nice to be able to do things like this. And neighbors will find missing banana trees.
Tak minat pasal Ini minat dia mau ayah. Ha? Minat lu tok dia lah tu. Ipak lu. Ha, apa kita pasal? Tak minat. Ipak lu lah. Tok je lah tok. Ha, mai. Okey. Mai naik. Dah. Hei. Naik. Tu lah. Aduh.
It also gives us the excuse to get together, talk about old times, laugh, relax, just drink